Every time I look up a species, I'm gambling with myself. The gamble is, how difficult will my workload be this week? Do I easily find the creator? They respond promptly, and they have all the resources I could need or want? Or am I going to have to become the world's lamest private eye and have to scour every inch of the internet just to find even a few scraps of information? For every awesome species like Tiba, there's a manakit. For every wicker beast, there's a gem raptor. For every easy to make species video, there's one that is an absolute pain to find. This time, there is an overabundance of information, but it's organized in a very user-unfriendly way. I'm genuinely surprised that this species has the following it does while having so much crap to sift through. Anyway, hello everybody! I'm Sera Proto, and I come from space with videos for your face. This is a weekly series where I go into depth and tell you all the stuff about all the things about furry fandom open species. If you like the video, don't forget to like. People tell me I'm underrated, so let's get me to overrated. Today we're going to talk about Mochi Raptors. In my poll last week, it was the highest voted, and I can see why you all wanted it covered. All of the info is on Amino, and it's such a pain to go through this site and look through all of their info. I'll try my best to cover everything, but this is a less than ideal host method. I feel like Amino wasn't designed with this kind of content in mind, and it really shows. Amino has the worst UI on PC too. It is just so cluttered. They should honestly get a website for all this info and just use Amino or Discord to host the community. I really don't know where to start here with this species. It's not easy to dig through all this stuff. I get why you all wanted it covered, but at the same time I feel like you're punishing me? Did I do something to upset any of you? I'm really sorry if I did. I don't know what I did wrong. At first, I couldn't find a lore page. Turns out there is lore for each of their variant and their traits, but it's mixed in with a bulleted list of do's and don'ts, and so much reading. I'm questioning if I can even do this video in a week, and I've even been keeping track of the time it takes for me to make this video. So, on screen you'll see the number for how many hours it took me to make this week's video. Mochi Raptors are a semi-open species in the furry fandom. The term Mochi Raptor actually covers a series of traits that any Mochi could have. Each of these traits are drastic enough changes that the Mochis could be considered a different species within themselves. A Mochi can have a king, aquatic, pinata, liquid, winged, and ghost traits with varying levels of open and closed, but only a couple are considered different enough to get their own lore. So rather than each of these groups of traits being restricted to one type of species, like say wicker beasts, they instead all listed as bullet points and jammed in one box and called Mochis. The species is very rules heavy despite not having much of a thematic consistency. I was going to organize this like wickers where each is considered a subspecies, but I want this to be as accurate as possible to the guide and not assume what Lupi meant with these. Mochi Raptors in general are a series of pseudo-mammals, meaning they're a species that has the appearance and traits of mammals but aren't actually mammals. They're easy to distinguish from other raptors based on some common traits. They have big round heads and sticky tongues. The Sera is also dark, with some variations like albino, pibbled, or blind Mochi. This isn't just for aesthetic purposes either. The dark Sera of the Mochi helps them in hunting by being better equipped to absorb light and making them less likely to be blinded, as well as intimidation factor. There is a lot of variation in their eyes outside of the Sera difference too. There are some with many, which is a restricted trait only for the king variant. Some with one big eye like a cyclops, and others with eyes that are buttons and mouths. I don't see how the latter two help with hunting, but sure, I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Regular Mochi are under 8 feet tall, and kings are as tall as 10 feet tall. The double king can be 12. Sorry, I'm wondering what makes someone a double king? The shortest Mochi can be 3 feet tall. Mochi Raptors mature at the same rate as humans and live up to 120 years old, which makes sense for the size of the species. Larger animals tend to take longer to mature because they have less predators in the wild and can have the luxury of a lengthy adolescence. A lot of this stuff is a bulleted list, so I'm leaving some stuff out for the sake of better flow. Mochi Raptors don't have a gender. A cool thing about their habitat, diet, and language is It doesn't matter. They don't have a specific habitat, diet, or lore, or language, but they do originate from forested valleys in the maintain, as it's written here, I think they meant mountain, where they can take advantage of their natural climbing skill. So yeah, if you wanted to, you could say your Mochi lives in a dumpster and eats discarded Taco Bell.
Hello, I live in a dumpster. Ooh, what's this? My favorite. Discarded Taco Bell. My favorite. Now to wait for someone to dispose of some Baja Blast.
You're going to see soon enough, but this species has a ton of variety, like big, dead, fish, and pinata, but in addition to that, they can have antenna, bug wings, and beetle wings. As a bonus, there is no limit to how many open traits you can apple? Why does my script say apple here? As a bonus, there is no limit to how many open traits you can apply to one raptor, so feel free to go as Sparkle Dog as you'd like. Anatomy. Yay! More bulleted lists! This is not a fun read. Mochi Raptors are equally capable of walking on 2 legs, or 4, depending on the need, and they typically have a round dome piece. That's their head. This is because there is a concentration of fat deposits inside the face that facilitates nerves that help them detect better scents. Feathers. You can stylize feathers on their head into hairdos. However, the feathers can't be bigger than the raptor or they'd eat pavement. Horns. No restrictions on horns besides that they can't be bigger than their dome piece. There aren't many limitations on teeth. They can be any color, overbite, underbite, fanged, crocodilian, and saber-tooth. Although the underbite can't go past the nostril and the saber-teeth can't go past the chin, that's because these are closed traits belonging to the Oni variant. Who would have thought that the species with a variant for fish, pinatas, and dead would have so many rules? The head can have additional traits beyond just the round shape. They can have whiskers and streamers or a cobra hood. I read somewhere that the cobra hood used to be a restricted shape that was tacked on when the creator wanted to monetize the species. They later on changed their mind about this and had to issue some refunds to people who had previously paid for these traits. Fine, whatever. I don't mind close species or traits, but there are so many here that it's hard to keep up with what is okay and what isn't. And I think the audience feels the same way too, because I'm seeing a lot of comments of people asking, is this okay? Is this okay? Is this okay? This would really benefit from a step-by-step creation guide like Vernon's. Each feature has a limit too, like whiskers can't be longer than the body. I feel like I don't need an amino for this, I need a checklist. We're at the halfway point for the official trait list. This is going to be longer than the Manikit video, isn't it?
Yes, 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 yes. Yes.
It is, isn't it?
Yes, yes, yes. Oh my god.
There are a large variety of free body traits for you to use, such as feathery manes, butts, arms, ankles, scaly limbs, underbelly, back feathers, and spines. There are just as many tail options too, like mochi, pointed, button, peacock, top tail feathers, long tail, small, fluffy, big, fluffy, and feather tip, as well as the various different types of tails for specific traits like crystal. Mutations. Mochi Raptors can be born with a variety of abnormalities caused from birth defects or environmental factors. Common mutations include 2 heads, up to 4 arms, centaurs, up to 3 tails, and double-mouthed. Mochi can't have a combination of extra heads plus limbs, but you can add extra tails or mouths to them. They show a picture of others including more feathers, multiple tongues, and whiskers combined with streamers. They also include a lazy eye in mutations, but it feels really mean to call that a mutation. Plant growth. Mochi Raptors who have lost appendages will experience plant growth on the end of the missing limb. This can result in plant growth growing into fully functional limbs. This is a really cool alternative to robot prosthetics, but I'm starting to question what makes one thing a closed trait and the other open. There's a big lack of consistency here, and it seems like these traits are marked open or closed arbitrarily. The species has no rules thematically, but still so many rules thematically. Aquatic traits. Previously, aquatic traits of Mochi weren't allowed, but one day Lupi said, "Fishy cute," and made them a thing. I agree. Fishy are cute. But I think this should have been organized into its own subspecies to keep things thematically consistent. But you can now add shark, fish, tentacle, eel, shrimp, and axolotl tails, as well as fins, anglerfish antenna, and a back fin. The little bit of lore here is that during a big war, some Mochi were too scared to fight and hid. The ones who hid in caves or near water developed aquatic traits over time. This isn't included in the official trait list. You have to click the second aquatic guide, Or is it the third because the one's included in the official trait list? This is organized poorly. Liquid trait. I had to do a rewrite of the script to get back to this part because of how the official trait post is organized versus the newcomer's guide. I thought I was done. Liquid mochi are mochi that have liquid traits that can't be used to imitate closed traits. This liquid can have objects floating inside. They mentioned that you can even have toenails inside. The section that can be liquid are everything but the head and legs and arms. Wings can be liquid if you paid for wings. Liquid can imitate open traits as well as glow. Pinata trait. This is another one I initially skipped. Pinata traits are similar to King Frill's traits, but we'll go into King's Frill's later. All you need to know is that it's like them, but you had to have 2 or more layers for it to be a pinata. Ghost traits. He's a phantom. This is where we finally start seeing significant lore, but it's kept in a separate post from the rest of the main trait list. There is so much lore here, and it's genuinely actually interesting. This is why I think of traits as being subspecies rather than traits. If each trait were organized as a species and given their own lore, I think it would make for a much more interesting species and a better read. It would also encourage consistency rather than a chaotic jumble of parts. I was considering writing this video in the way that they're different species, but this video is about the species as Lupi wrote it. I don't want people to see this hypothetical one that I would make and think it's an official lore video and get the wrong idea about the species. This video is about being accurate to how they wrote it. Anyway, mochi have a life force called anima, and every time one is injured mentally or physically, a bit of anima leaks out. Unable to ever return to the body, the anima follows the mochi around or latch onto the one who hurt them. Once the mochi dies, all the anima in their corpse will escape and hover like a cloud. Usually this anima fades with time, but if the mochi dies, and its soul is too weak to pass on, was brutally killed, the body defiled, or has unfinished business, it'll turn into a ghost mochi. Isn't that just rad as hell? Ghosties don't age, develop new traits or interests, learn new info, and may have their personalities demented a bit. This ghost-only trait has a parasitic fungi growing all over and controlling its host. The host's eyes turn white and lifeless as the host loses all control of its body. It's merely a puppet now, and the mushroom is pulling the strings. Because of this, the ghost is forever trapped in this ghastly realm, forced to wander for eternity at the hands of its parasite. Ghost trait 2, Double Iris. This mutation happens to any mochi near death, granting enhanced vision, but upon death it can become a very dangerous spirit. These mochi can gain up to 5 additional iris, and can be present in regular or dead mochi, and still follows the same rules as regular mochi eyes. Ghost trait 3, Rotted Flesh. A healthy mochi is a happy mochi, but ghosts aren't happy, so this one isn't healthy. This mochi's skin is fragile, and it's slipping and sliding off its newly animated, rotting body, exposed its insides all the while. Of course, this trait is only for ghosts, so we'll probably never have to see one ourselves. Ghost trait 4, Floating Limbs. Ghost mochi aren't incapable of being hurt. This variation happens when the ghost is injured. When the mochi has its limb torn off, it floats around the host body and leaks anima. The ghost can still manipulate the appendage within a limited range of the body. The anima wants to stay whole, but can't reattach, so the limbs merely float close by like a magnetic field. These ghosties may be seen with floating heads, arms, legs, tails, or they might look like Rayman, but just floating hands and feet. Ghost trait 5, Handtails. Any mochi can have big hand-shaped tails, but a living mochi can't control them, but ghosts can control theirs. If all the mochi trait types were organized like this, it'd make for a much more enjoyable read. Crystal trait. Crystal traits are a series of open traits that involve various levels of crystalline growths. These crystals, when formed at the base of the tail, can result in the mochi having a tail with a mouth. Crystals can grow next to the eyes of a Cyclops mochi, as turtle-like plates on the back, as generalized growths looking similar to spines, hooves, or the aforementioned tails. The tails can be thin and long, stubby and round, or big, fluffy, and long. Wing trait. A lot of the species we cover typically have rules against having wings. This is typically to promote a consistent appearance, lore reasons, or they're too worried that their species will look like Dutch angel dragons. But mochis can have wings. Wings are a gift from the Enlighter to the mochi, a remnant of the long past history that has something to do with the war against the dragons, the first time that was mentioned in the main post, and it leaves me with more questions than answers. Maybe the war should be the first thing you mention at the beginning in addition to generalized lore, but instead we have bullet points. Wings are a closed trait, and you need an MYO to get them. If you remember, from the Vernon's video, an MYO means make your own slot. It's not a commission, but a license that says you're allowed to have a winged mochi. These tend to be cheap in most cases. This isn't most cases. The wings can be an angel, bat, or a mix of the two, or bug wings like butterflies. I made a lot of typos in this script. Anyway, butterfly wings can't be longer than the body since Mochi can't fly. Not all the wings are closed. You can have smaller aesthetic wings like head, butt, tail, or ankle wings. They need to be small though. The tail ones can also replace the tail, but they can't be bigger than the head. They follow the same type as the regular wings. I kinda wish they made these a closed trait too, so the checklist would be easier to follow. King traits. In the main traits section, I mentioned some traits that are only available to king mochis. Kings have their own posts like ghosts do, but not too much lore. Despite the king being made almost immediately after the original, this post is 2 years old and they didn't update the lore. It really seems like they thought about what they could make and charge for before they thought about how it fit into the world. Kings are obtainable only through raffles, adopts, customs, and MYOs from Lupi and Snowy, the owners. The traits are Oni Fangs, Multi-Ice, Tail Streamers, Frills, Jaw Tusks, and Face Scales. The difference between these and free versions is simply how these ones are longer, or in some cases, just an extra one. Oh my god. This is a fursona with microtransactions. This is furry microtransactions. Did Activision make this one? Oni Fangs. Oni are ogre-like monsters from Japanese mythology. They're depicted with long curved teeth, and those teeth are on king mochis. They're extremely sharp and great for fighting, but result in issues when it comes to eating. So despite being better suited for combat, they mostly eat nuts and berries. One mochi can have up to 6 of these teeth. Multi-eyed. King mochi can have up to 5 eyes, and they can be placed on the head, chest, and hands. These extra eyes sharpen the raptor's vision, except up close. As an object gets closer, the vision goes from sharp to outlines, except for the main 2 eyes. These mochi can see in ultraviolet as well. Double-headed mochis can have up to 5 per head, making for a total of 10 eyes. Wow, if you add wings onto this one, it'll look like a biblically accurate angel. Tail streamers. Tail streamers are feathers attached to long, thin strands. They're used to sense surroundings and hunt prey like bug antennae, or to search for a mate. These mochi are often seen as more important within their own pack. They are, however, very brittle, and the feathers can catch or snag on the environment. Neck frills. These are long feathers that are connected to the neck of the mochi. The frills can open up and close like an umbrella or like a fringed lizard, making them seem larger as well as be used to intimidate enemies and prey. As with most king traits, they give off an air of superiority over regular mochis. So they win the genetic lottery and get to become CEOs because they inherited daddy's money, I mean daddy's kingly stature. Of course they're used in mating too. Like the streamers though, once extended, they're pretty easy to, mess up. Jaw tusks. These tusks are on the outside of the mouth and on the jaw itself. They're made out of the same material as spikes or horns and typically appear dull and battered in appearance. They're used to fight, of course, dig, and find mates since they can be better at fighting other interested partners who are going for the same mate as them. Other mochi seeing this trait know not to even bother fighting them because they know that they got their hacks on. These tusks, however, are very heavy and result in a slower mochi or can be broken painfully. Face scales. These are large solid scales that look like plate mail that grow on the mochi's face. They're very strong and nearly indestructible, giving them a huge defensive edge in combat. They can also use these plates to crack open nuts and rocks. Alright, that was the last of that. So, how do we, the plebs, get the honor of a king? There are people selling their old traits we can buy. Staff does a monthly custom king trait for an adoption. Buying an MYO. MYOs are one use only. You can sell yours, but not for more than you paid unless you include additional art. You can breed your king with others, but they don't inherit the traits. And you can redesign as long as they look similar. So the easiest way seems to be to buy one of the monthly MYOs that Lupi or Snowy offer. One king trait is $20. 2 is $30. So you save 10 by buying 2. That's $20 to be told that I can put bigger teeth on it. That seems a bit much. But you can't have more than 2 of them. Wings are $35. Wings with a king trait are $45, and 2 traits plus wings is $65. Yikes. Yikes. This is an MYO. Are they drawing them?
No.
I think it's just a license.
Yes.
It seems a bit pricey for a license. If I have to draw this myself and I'm being charged $65 to do all the work and just being told that I can do it, that seems a little bit far. That seems a bit much. Up at the top of this post, it also says that these are reduced prices. So how bad were they before? I looked more and this isn't actually even the current prices. Another problem with this particular amino. On the new users page, the prices I mentioned are called the new prices. But I checked Lupi's feed, and they're charging less than that for slots. So the slots are actually cheaper than that, but they're not showing the newest prices on the one that says new prices. So it's actually 45 for 2 king traits and wings, which still seems like it's a bit much to be told, go ahead, you have my blessing, sport. But it's not the worst, and they only offer these once a month, so there's some semblance of rarity or exclusivity. I've always said that you don't get to complain about an artist's price, just go to a different artist, but I think I can whine a little since MYOs are a license and not art. It's kind of weird to charge that much for what is essentially just permission. It's genuinely hard to tell what's going on with this amino page because the information is outdated and out of place in a lot of places. Amino is not a good place for storing this amount of information. They should really look into getting a website. I keep seeing a lot of comments from people on the amino about not being able to find posts. Apparently this community used to be 10,000 members at one point, but now it's less than half of that. Anyway, I'll explain the full controversy of this in another video. What would I do to make this better? I'd divide these traits into thematic subtypes. With it as it is, it's too hard for most people to keep up. I'm having a hard time keeping up, and I make these videos pretty regularly now. But this results in the creator and staff getting flooded with "is this okay" messages and questions. While if you broke it down into their own subtypes with individual rules, people could pick one aesthetic they like and build from there, like wicker beasts. I mentioned that this species would benefit from a step-by-step creation guide like Vernon's, but each step would have a million options to go over. So I'd go, this is a regular mochi. It can do this. This is liquid. Liquid! It can do this. This is aquatic. It can do this. Like how they have the ghost mochis as a separate species kind of deal. This is too long as it is. So with that, if you like this video, remember to leave a like and subscribe. Let's turn me from underrated to overrated. If you really like these videos, you should also check out the Patreon so that you can get your name in a video, or see these weekly species videos up to 3 days early for as low as $1. So, thank you everybody for watching. I'll see you all next time. Bye! This week's comment of the week is from Zombie Guts. I really liked this comment. It made me laugh pretty hard. And I think a lot of you feel the same way too, because they have 28 likes on their comment now. Zombie Guts, in response to finding out that Tivas are called a pumble when in a group, said, "The pumble fumbled and took a tumble, which caused them to rumble and grumble, until one named Bumble was humble and mumbled that it was sorry for the jumble, and did not wish for them to crumble." Awkward Finger Gun said this one was a masterpiece, and yes, I agree. Thank you for the comment, Zombie Guts. If you want to be a viewer of the week, all you have to do is just comment, and if it's good or something I like, I'll make sure to put it on the screen.